Salvation of Dantavakra and Vidureth after the killing of Shishupal, Shalv etc. Dantavakra arrived in the battlefield carrying a make. When Lord Krishna saw him coming, he too jumped down from the chariot and balked his movement with a make. Dantavakra tried to humiliate God with his abuses and hit him on head with his make. Lord Krishna easily bore the blow of make and hit Dantavakra's chest with his make named cosmogony. Dantavakra's heart tore apart by the blow and he fell dead. Vidureth was the brother of Dantavakra. He came in the field with sword and shield to avenge his brother's death. Seeing him ready to launch an attack, Lord Krishna cut Vidureth's head with his wheel. Thus, Lord Krishna entered Dwarka only after killing Shalv, Dantavakra and Vidureth. All the gods and other inhabitants of heaven showered flowers on him. Sudama, the Lord Krishna's friend during his stay as a disciple at the hermitage of sage Sandipani, Lord Krishna had a Brahmin friend named Sudama. He was very indifferent in nature with no desires for the material things. After their education, Lord Krishna came to Dwarka while Sudama, who had no any inclination for accumulating material wealth, got married and began to pass his life with his wife Sushila in abject poverty. One day his wife Sushila said, "O Lord, your friend Krishna is the king of Dwarka. He is very benevolent to Brahmins and his devotees. If you go to see him, he will understand your miseries and grant you a lot of wealth." But Sudama plainly refused, saying, "Devi, I have chosen the path of devotion for self-upliftment and not for the wealth." Sushila, however, kept off insisting, "All right, don't go for the wealth. But at least you can go to see your old friend." Sudama accepted this proposition, thinking that only the sight of Lord yields supreme benefit to the devotee. But he wanted something as a gift to present to his old friend. At this, his wife tied 4 handfuls of raw rice in a bundle. With that humble gift, Sudama set out for Dwarka. His poverty was at its hem. But he kept on reciting Lord Krishna's name all along the way. After walking for some distance, Sudama felt thirsty. He drank water, quenched his thirst and thanked God that he at least does give water to drink. Sudama kept on walking the whole day. In the evening, he kept the bundle of rice under his head as a pillow and slept. Now it was Lord Krishna's turn to show his gratitude for the devotee. When Sudama awoke in the morning, he found himself right in front of Lord Krishna's palace. At first he could not believe his eyes, but the people told him that he was in Dwarka and standing right before the Lord's palace. Sudama requested the gatekeeper to inform Lord Krishna that his childhood friend Sudama had come. Lord Krishna was sitting in the company of Rukmani when the gatekeeper delivered the message. As soon as Lord Krishna learned about Sudama's arrival, he stood up and ran helter-skelter to welcome his childhood friend. At the gate he cordially embraced Sudama and escorted him into his private chamber and made him sit on the throne. Krishna and Queen Rukmani both washed Sudama's feet one by one. By the mere touch of his friend, Krishna was feeling overjoyed. His eyes filled with tears. He and Sudama were holding each other's hands. Their hearts were beating with the memories of their period as disciples at the hermitage of Sandipani. For long, none of them could utter a word. At last Sudama said, "O Jagadguru Krishna, I have the fortune of being your friend. What remains for me to do?" Lord Krishna said, "Brother, have you brought for me something sent by my sister-in-law? I love to accept even the pettiest thing presented with affection." At Krishna's words, Sudama felt ashamed and he did not reveal the 4 handfuls of raw rice that he had brought as gift. With shame, Sudama began to look at the ground. Lord Krishna knew everything, that his dear friend Sudama had never remembered him with a desire for wealth. This time too he has come at the insistence of his wife. Hence, I will give him the wealth that is rare even for the gods, thought Lord Krishna, and snatched the bundle of raw rice and opened it with great respect. He put 1 handful of it in his mouth. When Lord proceeded to take next handful, Queen Rukmani held his hand and prayed, O Vishwambar, fosterer of the world, for the prosperity of entire world this 1 handful is sufficient. Sudama stayed that night in the palace of Sri Krishna. There he experienced the comfort of Vaikuntha, abode of God. Staying there for many days, Sudama at last took leave of Sri Krishna and set out for his home. Lord Krishna did not give Sudama anything apparently, nor did Sudama ask for his favor. He was traveling overwhelmed by a divine sense of devotion and felt that Krishna might have not given him wealth lest he should forget him. Thus, sunk in myriad kinds of thoughts, Sudama reached his home. But at the place where his dilapidated hut stood once there was now a divine palace surrounded by verdant gardens. The floors of the palace were embedded with precious gems and stones. Standing at the gate, Sudama felt confused when his wife Sushila came out with scented water to welcome him. Tears were rolling on her cheeks. With love she greeted Sudama and escorted him inside the palace. Sudama was still reflecting over the God's grace and praying, May I have the friendship of Lord in every birth. May my affection increase for Lord Krishna's feet. I don't want wealth. Since then, Sudama enjoyed the comforts of the palace as the bounty of Lord Krishna bestowed upon him by none other than the Lord Krishna himself. His devotion increased day by day. Meeting of Lord Krishna with Gopis. Shukdev says, O Parikshit, Lord Krishna was passing his time with pleasure in Dwarka. A total solar eclipse happened to fall during that period. People from all over India thronged in Kurukshetra to take a dip in sacred Ganges on that great occasion. All the Yaduvanshis too arrived there. When Vrajvasis, inhabitants of Vraj, learned about Krishna and Balram's arrival in Kurukshetra, they too assembled there. During the festival, Lord Krishna met his foster father Nand and other cowherds who were his childhood friends. Lord Krishna met the gopis also, who had been pining for his sight since long. They enjoyed the meeting and kept on chatting for long. Overwhelmed by love and joy, Vasudev embraced Nand. Lord Krishna and Balram respectfully greeted Mother Yashoda and Father Nand. They too embraced Krishna and Balram cordially. Gopis were specially overwhelmed by Lord Krishna's sight. They had no other desire but to have a sight of Lord Krishna. That day their long-cherished dream had come true. Gopis imbued the captivating appearance of Lord Krishna and experienced the joy of embracing him. Krishna met all the gopis and embraced them. He inquired about their well-being and preached them with spiritual knowledge. By the virtue of that knowledge, feeling of living disappeared among the gopis and they merged with God forever. Organization of Yagya by Vasudev Devarshi Narada, Vyasa and many other great sages arrived in Kurukshetra to have a sight of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna welcomed them all. Then Vasudev greeted them and inquired about way for his self-upliftment. Laughingly, Narada said, Vasudev, a person, already living at the bank of the Ganges, discards her holy water and goes to other places of pilgrimage for his purification. In the presence of Krishna and Balram, the sages said, You regard the indescribable, eternal, Satchidanand Shri Krishna as your son, and seek the way of your self-upliftment from us. O Vasudev, recognize him. Take to his refuge, only he can save you. Vasudev got the meaning of sage's words and began to develop feelings of devotion for his son. Every human being has obligation for the gods, sages and his ancestors. The sages got a yagya performed in Kurukshetra by Vasudev to free him from the obligation for gods. Revisiting of Devkis' 6 sons in Dwarka, Krishna and Balram used to greet their parents first daily in the morning. Now Vasudev had recognized his identity. So after their return from Kurukshetra, when Krishna and Balram went as usual to greet their parents, Vasudev greeted them first. Lord Krishna then preached his father about the metaphysical knowledge. With that knowledge, Vasudev began to see Krishna everywhere. Mother Devki was also present there. Memory of her 6 children, who were killed by Kansa, was still afresh in her mind. She had heard that Krishna had fetched the dead son of Sandipani from Yamloka. So she prayed to them, "You both are venerable even to the gods. Kindly grant me my desire. Show me my 6 sons who were killed by Kansa." By their mother's dictate and helped by Yogmaya, both the brothers reached Sutaloka. The demon king Bali welcomed them there and offered them a seat, and washed their feet. King Bali then asked God what could he do for him. Lord said, "O demon king, in Swayambhu Manvantara, 6 sons were born to Arna the wife of Prajapati Marichi. They were all gods. They had once seen Brahma trying to copulate with his own daughter and hence derided at him. Indignant Brahma had then cursed them to take birth in demon incarnation. They therefore were born as the sons of Hiranyakashipu. In the present era, Yogmaya had made them born as Devkis' sons who were killed by Kansa. They are all now in your loka. Mother Devki is mourning for them, so we shall take them with us. They will thus be freed from the curse and go to their heavenly abode." Thus Lord Krishna and Balram brought those 6 babies to Dwarka and handed them to Mother Devki. Seeing her babies again, Devki's heart filled with love for her sons. Milk began to flood her breasts. She breastfed them. Drinking the milk, all the babies received salvation. They then departed to their heavenly abode. Love and marriage of Subhadra and Arjuna. King Parikshit asked, "Gurudev, how did my grandfather Arjuna and grandmother Subhadra got married? I want to hear this tale. Kindly narrate it to me." Shukdev said, "Parikshit, once travelling on a pilgrimage tour, Arjuna reached in Prabhas region. There he learned that Balram was desirous of marrying his sister Subhadra to Duryodhan. But Vasudev and Krishna were not in the favor of this marriage. So, a strong urge took hold in his mind to get Subhadra as his wife. Acting as per the urge, Arjuna reached Dwarka in the guise of Vaishnav sage. It was rainy season then, so with an excuse of Chaturmasya Vrata, 4 months long fast, Arjuna stayed in Dwarka. During his stay, Balram served and looked after him very well. But neither Balram nor any other inmates of the palace could recognize Arjuna. Once Balram invited Arjuna to his home. There he offered good, delicious food to Arjuna. Subhadra too served him well. There, they fell in love with each other. Later on, boarding a chariot, Subhadra went out of the palace for a joyride. At the outskirts of the town, Arjuna was awaiting for her. He had already taken permission of Devki, Vasudev and Krishna. Subhadra too had silently nodded her acceptance. So that evening Arjuna and Subhadra eloped from Dwarka. The news of Subhadra eloping with Arjuna first outraged Balram. But Lord Krishna and other near and dear ones convinced and pacified him. Release of Shiva from crisis. Maitreya asked, Gurudev, those among the gods, human beings and the demons, who worship Lord Shiva, get wealth very soon. But those, who worship Lord Narayana, remain afflicted with scarcity. What is the reason for that? In reply, Lord Krishna had said, O Yudhishthira, I take away all the wealth from those whom I bestow my grace. When they are poor, their relatives desert them. I even render their efforts useless when they try to earn money. Thus, being unsuccessful repeatedly, the people develop an attitude of indifference for wealth. Then they begin to take shelter as my devotee and mingle with me. Only then, I bestow my full grace on them and they receive me as such Chidanand Parabrahma. Thus, pleasing me through my worship is extremely difficult. Hence, ordinary people give me up and worship other deities, which are in fact different forms of me. Lord Shiva is Ashutosh and bestows his devotees quickly with grace. He gives wealth and other riches to his devotees. But once they get wealth, the devotees become despotic and even forget the God who had blessed them. Once upon a time, there was a demon Vriksur. He had pleased Lord Shiva and sought a boon that the person, upon whose head the demon put his hand, should be incinerated at once. Lord Shiva granted the boon without considering the consequences. But as soon as the demon got this supernatural power, he ran to incinerate Lord Shiva first. The demon was eyeing Gauri Parvati, so he was determined to eliminate Lord Shiva. Now afraid of his own boon, Lord Shiva ran for his life, with the demon following him in hot pursuit. At last Shiva reached in Vaikuntha and told Lord Vishnu about his crisis. Lord at once illumined the demon and made him put his hand on his own head. By the virtue of the boon, the demon was incinerated in no time and thus Lord Shiva could be saved. Testing of Trinity. Once upon a time, all the sages assembled on the bank of Saraswati river. A dispute erupted among them as to who among the Trinity was the greatest. By consensus they appointed sage Bhrigu to test the Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. Bhrigu reached to Brahma, but did not greet him. Brahma got infuriated, but since the sage Bhrigu was his son, he did not curse him. Then Bhrigu visited Shiva. Lord Shiva proceeded to embrace the sage. But instead of accepting Shiva's welcome, the sage began to abuse him, saying, "You violate the dignity of Vedas, so I will not meet with you." Angry Shiva raised his trident to kill him, but Bhagwati stopped him. At last Bhrigu reached Vaikuntha to see Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu was lying with head in the lap of Lakshmi. Bhrigu kicked hard at his chest. But instead of getting angry, Lord Vishnu got up, bowed his head before the sage and begged pardon. "O sage, pardon me, I could not welcome you at once, at your arrival. Your feet are soft, I hope they are not hurt. All my sins have been washed by the touch of your feet." Bhrigu felt very pleased by the serious talks of Lord Vishnu. His heart felt overwhelmed with excess of devotion. He returned to the assembly of the sages and narrated his experience. Since then Lord Vishnu is regarded as the supreme and giver of peace and fearlessness. Revival of Brahm's dead children. There in Dwarka lived a Brahman. When the first son was born to his wife, it died immediately after birth. The Brahman took his dead son to the royal court and complained, "My son has died because of anti-Brahman and licentious actions of the king." One by one, thus, 8 sons were born to the Brahman couple, but they all died immediately after birth. And the Brahman kept on dumping his dead sons at the gate of the royal palace. When his ninth son was born and died, Arjuna was also there in Dwarka. He made a promise to the Brahmins, I shall guard your son or commit self-immolation. At the time of next delivery, the agitated Brahman came to Arjuna. Training his bow and arrows, Arjuna made all arrangements to protect Brahman's 10th son. Sanctified by many mantras, Arjuna's arrows constructed a fence around the labor room. A child took birth, but it too died after some time. Brahman, then, cursed Arjuna. Arjuna scouted through all the 3 worlds and even the netherworlds in search of the Brahman's dead son, but he could not find him anywhere. Ultimately accepting his failure and as per his promise, Arjuna proceeded to immolate himself. Meanwhile, Lord Krishna too learned about Arjuna's vow and stopped him from self-immolation. Thereafter, riding a divine chariot, Lord Krishna set out with Arjuna towards west, beyond the limits of cosmos. They reached the abode of Lord Vasudev in Tripad Vibhuti. There Arjuna saw that Lord was present in Purushottam's appearance. Shri Krishna and Arjuna greeted him. Lord Purushottam said in a serious voice, O Krishna and Arjuna, only to have a sight of both of you, I brought the Brahman's sons to me. Both of you had taken incarnation on earth from my part to protect the religion. All the demons have been slain by now. Now you too return to me. Shri Krishna and Arjuna again greeted Lord Purushottam and returned on earth with all the sons of the Brahman. Arjuna was greatly surprised to see the supreme abode of Lord Purushottam. He felt that whatever strength a living being had, it been all by Shri Krishna's grace. Like common, ordinary people, the Lord Krishna stayed on earth enjoying mundane comforts, performed yagas like kings, behaved like idealistic people, deterred his subjects and slayed evil kings to re-establish religion on earth. Chapter 6 The sages cursed Yaduvanshis. Parashar said, as the time passed, Yaduvanshis grew stronger and more influential. Now no longer did they like the welcoming and treating of the great sages by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna knew about their disliking, but secretly he was pleased by this change in Yaduvanshis' behavior, for he knew that by disregarding the saints and the scriptures, they would meet their end sooner. Once the Yaduvanshis clothed Jambavati's son Samb in a woman's attire and, showing him to the sages, asked mockingly, Maharaja, this is our sister-in-law. She is an expecting mother. She feels shy to ask, but tell us what will be born to her. Through their unfailing vision, the sages knew the reality and said, Fools, a pestle shall be born to her, and that pestle shall exterminate the entire Yaduvansha. Now all the Yaduvanshis were perplexed by sages' prediction, and approached their king Ugrasen. But, even the king was helpless now because he could not change the words the pious sages. In due course, a pestle was born to Samb. Frightened of an imminent fate, Yaduvanshis crushed the pestle into a fine powder and threw it into the sea. Only a nail remained, that also was thrown into the sea where a fish swallowed it. A fisher caught the fish and cut it open and found the nail. He gave it to a hunter. The hunter fixed the nail in the head of his arrow. On the other hand, the sea waves washed the powder of the pestle ashore where it germinated and grew as luxuriant grasses. Later on, once all the Yaduvanshis assembled at the seashore for a picnic where they drank wine and began to fight with one another under intoxication. Soon their quarrel grew so high that they pulled out the grasses, which were growing there, to use as the arms. With the grasses the Yaduvanshis beat one another to death. Narada preaches Vasudev about Bhagwat. Once Narada arrived in Dwarka. Vasudev prayed him and requested to provide him with pious company of Bhagwat Dharma. Narada said, O king, once upon a time, 9 great sages arrived in the court of the king Janaka. King Janaka had put the same curiosity before them also. I will narrate the conversation that followed there between the sages and the king. First of all, the first Yogeshwar Kavi said, O King Janaka, dedication is the first duty, dharma, of a Vaishnav. He should devote everything, his actions, fruits of actions and even himself, at the feet of Lord. He ought to hear about Lord's virtues. Such a devotee shall be indifferent to the worldly affairs and shall laugh, dance or sing occasionally and sanctified all the 3 worlds. The king then asked about the characteristics of the Lord's devotees. Another Yogeshwara Hari said, a true devotee of the Lord remains unaffected by feelings like hunger, thirst, life, death, labor, pain, fear and desire. Such a devotee is the excellent kind of Bhagwat. Even the wealth of all the 3 worlds cannot shake the faith of such a devotee, because Lord Sri Hari himself stays in his heart. What is illusion? A Yogeshwara Antariksh replied, King, an illusion is also God's play. Having a possessive feeling about mundane is illusion. Thinking in terms of I, me, mine, my, you, your, is also illusion. If one can have such an affection for God as he has for worldly things, one can easily surmount the illusion. King Janaka then asked about the method of worshipping Lord. A Yogeshwara, Karbajan said, O king, the Lord had a fair complexion in Satya Yuga. People used to receive him through methods like meditation, reconciliation, etc. In Treta Yuga, the Lord had reddish complexion and yagas were the main means to achieve him. In Dwapar Yuga, the Lord had yellowish complexion and he could be pleased through worships. In the present Kali Yuga, Lord has dark complexion and one can receive him through means like recitation, narration and hearing of his name and place. Thus, Narada preached Vasudev about Bhagwat Dharma. Now the heart and mind of Vasudev were thoroughly clean and pure. Krishna departs to his abode and destruction of Yadas to remind Lord Krishna about the moment of his departure. Brahma arrived in Dwarka accompanied by all the gods. He prayed to him, O Lord, you have completed your duty of what we had once requested you. Now, you please return to your abode. Lord said, on the 7th day from now, Dwarka shall submerge in the sea and Yadvas shall fight among themselves to death. I too shall depart then. The arrow of a hunter shall be the cause of my departure. When Uddhava learned that Lord Krishna was about to wind up his place, he approached him and said, I understand, O Lord, that this all is happening by your wish. But I cannot part for a moment from your feet. Hence, take me also with you to your abode. Lord Krishna said, Uddhava, I will not go anywhere. My entire brilliance will be present in Srimad Bhagwat. You stay here preaching Bhagwat Dharma. Saying thus, Lord preached Uddhava about the Gita Jnana through the tale of Avadut. Lord Krishna narrated thus, Uddhava, once, our ancestor Yadu happened to see Lord Dattatreya in a forest. Lord was indulged in the supreme joy in the guise of Avadut. Yadu asked him about the reasons for his whimsical state. Avadut had said, O king, making the various animals, birds, insects etc. as my teacher, I have learned about spirituality from them. That is why I am free from mourning and attachment. Earth, air, sky, water, fire, the moon, the sun, pigeon, python, sea, grasshopper, bumblebee, honeybee, elephant, extractor of honey, deer, fish, prostitute, osprey, boy, girls, arrow maker, snake, spider and wasp are all my teachers. I took refuge at these 24 teachers and learned from their behavior. I learned forgiveness from earth, purity from the sky, holiness and cleanliness from the water, innocence and renunciation from the fire, indifferentness from the air, to remain unaffected by circumstances from moon, abdication from the sun, incoherence from the pigeon, dependence upon fate and remain effortless from the python, to remain always happy and serious from the sea, to be under the control of sense organs and hence meet total destruction from the grasshopper, acquiring of virtues from bumblebee, fault in cumulating from honeybee, to abstain sensuous talks from the deer, to eliminate greed from the fish, sorrow in hope and happiness in desperation from the prostitute, to feel happy in uncertainty from osprey, dispute among many from the girls, concentration from the arrow maker, to roam alone and detachment from a particular place from the snake, virtues of the Creator Lord from the spider, and I learned similarity from the wasp. In the guise of Avadut, Lord Dattatreya says, O King, I learned wisdom and apathy from my body also, because life and death again are inseparably intertwined with it. Hence the net result of loving this body is nothing but sorrow. Thus our own body also helps us to learn about metaphysical knowledge. Lord Krishna also explained Uddhava regarding futility of physical and heavenly luxuries. This human body is like a tree, on which two birds, Jivatma and Paramatma, microcosm and supreme soul, have taken shelter. Two fruits, happiness and sorrow, appear on it. Jivatma, microcosm, eats these fruits while Paramatma, supreme soul, stays as an indifferent onlooker. There are three kinds of Jiva, Baddha, bound, Bhakta, devotee, and Mukta, liberated. Baddha Jivas, bound souls, are those who indulge in sensual pleasures and those who dislike pious company. Mukta Jiva, liberated souls, are those who are free from attachment and bindings. Bhaktas, devotees, are those who meditate on me and dedicate their everything in my feet and have love for my virtues. My devotee is kind, free from flaws, tolerant, has feeling of fraternity for all and controls his desires. Bhikshugit Lord Krishna said, Uddhava, in the world, there is indeed a dearth of such tolerant people who can tolerate bitter remarks of evil ones. In this context there is a tale of a greedy Brahmin who lived in Ujjain. That Brahmin had been badly tormented by the evil people after he had lost his wealth. But still the Brahmin did not lose his patience, and regarding his present state as a result of his previous birth's deeds, he expressed his feelings thus: These people are not the cause of my miseries, neither the gods, nor body, even planets and time, can be blamed for my miseries. Scriptures and learned ones held the mind itself guilty of one's miseries. It is the mind that runs the cycle of the world and makes every kind of efforts. In the absence of mind, even the soul is rendered motionless. When one accepts the dictates of the mind and indulges in sensual pleasures, soul too comes to be bound with them. The ultimate outcome of all the spiritual efforts like celibacy, study of Vedas etc. and abidance to pious actions is the concentration of mind. Concentration of mind and is abstention from sensual pleasures are the primary conditions for attainment of Paramyoga, supreme meditation. Thus Lord Krishna preached Uddhava about Jnana Gita. Uddhava too took Bhagwat, which is a form of the Lord, with honor and departed for Badrikasrama. Part 6 Description of Dynasties in Kali Yuga. Parashar describes about the dynasties that would occur in Kali Yuga. Ripunjay or Purnajay would be the last king of Brihadratha dynasty. The kings of Nand dynasty would succeed this dynasty. Then a diplomat Brahmin, named Chanakya, would exterminate this dynasty and enthrone Chandragupta Maurya. In Maurya dynasty, a great king would occur by the name of Ashokvardhan. After him, Yavans would rule then for 640 years. Their rule would be succeeded by the governance of the fair-complexioned foreigners, who would rule for 160 years. Thereafter, there would be no king and no subjects because people from all the classes would come forward to rule. The ruler would be selected by the majority votes. There would be no anything like holiness. Cows would grow thin like nannies. People would not marry, as per their castes. Greed, selfishness and sex would be the base of marriage life. In adverse conditions, spouses would desert each other. There would be nothing like duty, responsibility and conduct. Hair would be the main item of adornment for the women. People would not have the knowledge of religious scriptures in Kali Yuga. Talkativeness would be identified with knowledge. Only those would be regarded as clever, who could pick others' pockets. Children would not regard or pay due respect to their parents. Children would maintain relations with parents till their marriage only, not after that. Boys would not touch the feet of their own parents, but would pay full respect to their father and mother-in-law. Brother-in-law would be dearer to them than their own brother. Parashar says, Kali Yuga is the mine of faults, but it has only one great virtue, that the people will acquire divine position only by reciting Lord's name. Recitation of Lord's name, regardless of intention and motivation, whether it is love, derision, laziness or maliceness, would destroy one's sins. But the sinister people would do even the most difficult tasks in Kali Yuga, but they would not recite Lord's name. They would not have an interest in the Lord. Their interests would be more in sensuous things like sound, touch, beauty, scent, etc. The Parangati, supreme salvation, that people could receive by 10,000 years of meditation in Satya Yuga, by performing yagya for 100 years in Treta Yuga and by worshipping Lord's idol for 10 years in Dwapar. That supreme salvation is easily available for people in Kali Yuga simply by reciting Lord's name for 1 day and 1 night continuously. But still, in Kali Yuga people would not have faith in Lord's name. It is their misfortune. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.